and business transaction attorney, Joe Gottlieb.
Thanks, Marshall. You know, after reviewing hundreds of franchise agreements and having written my share, I've come to believe that there are certain common themes that run through this world of franchise offerings that determine whether something is going to be what I would consider to be a real deal, a real offering with real legs, and whether someone would have a reasonable chance of success at it or not. Okay? So this is my top 10 list, and it's not in any particular order. The first is there an established market for the service or product that's being offered? Or is this something that is new, innovative, or trendy? Now, it's not always true that your chances of success are going to be higher if there's an established market for the product or service, but I think your likelihood of success is much greater. What do I mean? If you have something that's brand new to the market, okay, you have to create demand, you have to educate customers, and it's much, much more difficult to market and introduce that product to the public. Okay, so something that's more established, I think, has a higher likelihood. But along with that, number two is there some element of uniqueness, either to the product or the service, or how that product or service is offered. So, for instance, look at something like Five Guys hamburgers. Okay, nothing new about a hamburger, but their simplified menu was of great appeal, and they had tremendous expansion. Look at senior care. People have been taking care of seniors forever and ever, but the franchises rolled it out in a systematized way, introduced some technology to it, and had that element of uniqueness, okay, that made it attractive for someone who may not have had experience in that area before. So uniqueness in either the product or service or how it's offered. Is there a registered trademark? Now, people take this for granted, okay? Now, a very important part of franchising is brand recognition, but not every franchise offering is going to have a registered trademark, or even if it's registered, it's going to have a well-known trademark, okay? So what does that mean? Well, that means that the franchisee is going to have to not only pioneer a product or service, but is also going to have to pioneer a brand, and that's going to cost money. Now, with certain types of franchises, branding and a trademark is not as important. For instance, if the business is offering a service or a product to businesses rather than consumers, then it's less important. But it's important nonetheless, because if a trademark is registered, you know that it's protected, and you know that there are not going to be as high a likelihood for any potential trademark infringement claims that a particular franchisee may have for using this mark that's being licensed to him by the franchisor. Very important, and probably the most important, is there a track record of success? Because the barriers to entry for a franchisor are so low, which really means all you've got to do is be legally compliant in order to offer a franchise. There are a lot of things out there that haven't been tested sufficiently. That is obviously the most important thing. Can a prospect receive sufficient validation from franchisees that have been out there doing it for a while, okay, to determine whether it's going to work? To ask the tough questions to those franchisees. Do you get good franchisor support? What was your ramp-up time? What's your marketing look like? What are the margins? Okay, what's your real cost of doing this? Okay, so you've got to have track record, validation of concept. What's the financial strength of the franchisor? That's number 5. Franchise disclosure documents, as you've heard me say many times, have to contain financial statements for the franchisor. Ideally 2 years of audited financial statements. So what's the franchisor's cash position look like? What does their balance sheet look like? Do their auditors think that there are potential concerns about the business as a going concern or not? How solid is it? Am I putting more money into this franchise than the franchisor actually has money in the bank? These are very, very important questions. help you determine whether the franchisor can deliver on what it is they're promising they're going to do. Number 6 is the management team. In the franchise disclosure document, they have to disclose their principal officers, their directors, and anybody who's going to have significant control in the process. Do they have a franchising background? Is this just a mom and pop? How long have they been doing it? Okay. Does it make financial sense? Again, what do the numbers look like? Franchisors can provide historical performance information in their FDD, but many don't. So they're not going to tell you anything if it's not in the document. So you've got to rely on franchisee information. Is the franchisee, number 8, is it captive to the franchisor or other limited sources of supply for the ultimate product or service that it's selling to their customers? It's incredibly important. Okay? If I have to buy everything I'm reselling from my franchisor, from a captive source, sort of a potential for double dipping. I'm paying a royalty. Do I have to pay a markup on the product as well? Is there a viable exit strategy? Number 9, does the business make sense as a business? Can I build equity in it or not? And number 10, and you'll say, geez, this is already number 10. What about the documents? What about the franchise agreement? Is it reasonably fair? Well, typically it's not reasonably fair, but is there enough in there that it makes the deal make sense? All right. So success or failure of franchising is very dependent on a lot of things. Some you can have 2 people buying the same franchise. Some will succeed, some will not. It's hard for me to say what's a good one, what's a bad one, but for me it has to pass this 10-point test. I'm Joe Gottlieb.